I stood before the ornate mirror, the cool touch of my fingers working the black silk tie with painstaking precision. Each motion deliberate, steady, nothing was rushed. The reflection in the glass revealed a composed man, his posture perfect, his expression impassive. But beneath the surface, a storm raged, a storm of rage, betrayal, and a meticulous, calculated thirst for revenge. Tonight wasn't just any evening. It marked the 10th anniversary of my marriage to Julia. A decade that I had once considered perfect, a decade filled with memories I thought I cherished. Those memories, however, were now drenched in the bitter poison of deceit. Julia, the woman I had loved so deeply, had been playing me for a fool. Her phone, carelessly left on the kitchen counter weeks ago, had become the gateway to my torment. A few taps of my fingers had revealed the depths of her betrayal. Texts, photos, and intimate exchanges, an entire hidden world came to light. The shocking part? Her accomplice in this sordid affair was none other than Andrew Collins, the charismatic CEO of a fast-growing tech firm. Frequently lauded in the media for his innovation, his charm, and his success. The texts they exchanged, explicit and intimate, felt like a cruel mockery, and their secret meetings, laid bare on that bright screen, made me want to retch. At first, I was numb. The discovery stole my breath away, leaving me hollow, as though someone had drained the life from me. But then came the anger. It wasn't a slow burn. It was a fierce, relentless flame, one that propelled me toward the darkest of thoughts. I could not just humiliate them. No, I would dismantle their lives piece by piece. David, are you almost ready? Our guests will be here any moment. Julia's voice floated up from the staircase below, light and carefree. Her sweetness, her innocence, how hollow it felt in that moment. Almost there, darling, I called back, forcing warmth into my voice, even as cold fury surged through my veins. I descended the stairs, the sound of my footsteps deliberately slow, calculated. There she stood at the foot of the stairs, a vision in a crimson silk gown that hugged her body and cascaded to the floor like a pool of blood. Her smile was radiant, a perfect mask of innocence, completely unaware of the storm I had prepared for her. You look breathtaking, I murmured, placing a soft kiss on her cheek, my stomach twisting with disgust. Thank you, she beamed, her eyes sparkling with the joy of a woman who thought she was still in control. The evening unfolded like a picture of perfection. Guests arrived promptly at 7 o'clock, filling our home with laughter, chatter, and congratulatory cheers. Among them was Andrew, his presence unmistakable. He wore an expensive tailored suit, his charm radiating from every pore. When he shook my hand, it was firm, confident, his gaze unflinching, betraying nothing. Congratulations, David, he said smoothly, flashing that perfect smile of his. You and Julia have something truly special. I met his stare, my smile tight, controlled. A thin mask of politeness barely concealing the seething rage beneath. Indeed we do, I replied, my voice cold-pointed. The evening progressed, and I moved through the crowd, a model of joviality on the surface but ever watchful, ever calculating. Julia played the perfect hostess, charming guests with her laughter and grace, her image seemingly untouched by the dark truth that lurked behind her eyes. I couldn't help but watch her, the way she danced between the guests, pretending to be the loving wife, the perfect partner. It only deepened my resolve. After dinner, as the guests gathered around the dessert table, I tapped my champagne glass, the sound cutting through the murmur of conversation, commanding their attention. Thank you all for joining us this evening to celebrate an incredible milestone. I began, my voice warm and welcoming, though my insides churned with anticipation. I've prepared something special to honor the 10 beautiful years I've shared with Julia. Julia, ever the gracious wife, clasped my hand with affection, completely unaware of the storm I had set in motion. A video, I announced proudly. A compilation of our cherished memories. The guests applauded politely as the lights dimmed, and soft music played in the background. On the screen, images of our life together unfolded. Wedding vows, exotic vacations, family holidays. Sentimental sighs rippled through the room, the audience lost in nostalgia, their smiles warm, unaware of what was about to unfold. And then, without warning, the footage distorted, the images flickering, replaced by stark, unforgiving surveillance footage. My heart pounded as the room fell into a stunned silence. The affair between Julia and Andrew was laid bare, each passionate kiss, each whispered promise, every explicit encounter exposed in vivid, damning detail. The guests gasped collectively, their shock palpable in the heavy silence that followed. Julia froze beside me, her eyes wide with horror, her face drained of all color. Andrew staggered back, his confident facade crumbling in an instant. His phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket, no doubt filled with panicked messages, warning him that the footage was streaming live to his company's website. The night that was meant to celebrate our love, her love for me, her loyalty, had become the stage for the ultimate reckoning. I murmured coldly, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "Happy anniversary." The words hung in the air, sharp and biting. The guests shifted uncomfortably, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. They awkwardly excused themselves, their whispers filling the tense silence like a storm on the horizon. Andrew, desperate, turned and fled the scene, no doubt receiving frantic calls from his board, confirming the impending collapse of his career. Julia, unable to maintain her composure, crumbled into a nearby chair, her face hidden in her trembling hands. Her sobs filled the room, each one an agonizing reminder of her betrayal. "David," she cried, her voice broken, "why would you humiliate me like this?" I leaned in close to her, my voice as cold as ice. Because betrayal deserves a fitting consequence. I stood there for a moment, satisfied that the justice I had envisioned had been served. With a final, indifferent glance, I retreated upstairs, leaving Julia alone to face the ruin of her reputation. But as I climbed the stairs, sleep felt elusive, and the weight of the night's events seemed to press down on me. The silence of the house felt heavier than it ever had before. The following morning, I was jolted awake by the sharp buzz of my phone. The screen displayed a cryptic message, "Check your email." My heart raced as I opened the new message, finding a link to a cloud folder titled simply David. My stomach churned as I clicked the link, my eyes scanning the contents. Photographs, emails, explicit messages, even surveillance footage, each image and video a painful reminder of my past indiscretions. Affairs I had justified, convinced myself they were long buried, long forgotten, or never noticed. And then another message arrived, the sender unmistakable, Julia. The words on the screen hit me like a punch to the gut. "Did you really think you were so innocent, David? Happy anniversary to you too. I've known about your lies much longer than you've known mine. You thought you were punishing me, but you were dancing to my tune the entire time." A cold shiver ran down my spine. My elaborate revenge, everything I had so carefully orchestrated, had played directly into Julia's hands. The humiliation I had exacted on her paled in comparison to the one she had meticulously crafted for me. Her cruelty was subtle, calculated, and devastatingly thorough. She had shattered me, and in doing so, had turned my own anger and righteousness into nothing but ash. I had thought I was victorious, had believed I had exacted the perfect retribution. But now, as I read her words, the bitter truth settled into my bones. Julia had won effortlessly. She had turned my own weapon against me, leaving me isolated and defeated, with nothing but the wreckage of my own pride to hold on to. Her revenge was more insidious than I could have ever imagined, a slow burn of carefully revealed secrets that shattered me at the exact moment I believed I had triumphed. The weeks that followed blurred into a haze of lawyers, scandalous headlines, and the crushing weight of solitude. Julia moved out, leaving behind an emptiness that was far heavier than any argument we had ever had. Andrew's career was in tatters, but he vanished from the public eye, retreating into the shadows of his disgrace. One evening, as I sat alone in the quiet, empty house, drowning my sorrows in scotch, there was a sudden knock on the door. It startled me from my stupor, and I stumbled to answer it. When I opened the door, I found Julia standing there. She looked weary but composed, her face the picture of someone who had weathered her own storm. "We need to talk," she said, her voice calm but tinged with a quiet sadness. I hesitated, then stepped aside, wordlessly allowing her to enter. We sat across from each other, the silence between us heavy with tension. After a long moment, I finally spoke, my voice laced with disbelief. "What more could there be to say?" "The truth," Julia replied, her voice firm yet filled with sorrow. "The truth about why this happened. Why we became what we are." She began to speak, and as her words spilled out, unraveling years of misunderstandings, unresolved hurts, and quiet resentment, a strange sense of clarity washed over me. For the first time, we spoke openly, not as adversaries, but as two deeply flawed people, both wounded by the same circumstances. We shared the story of our relationship, of the hidden fractures that had slowly pulled us apart. As dawn began to break, something shifted. We both understood, perhaps for the first time, the bitter irony of our mutual revenge. We had destroyed each other in the most painful way possible, but in doing so, we had also freed ourselves from the burden of pretending. Julia stood to leave, her movements slow and deliberate. She paused at the door, turning back to me. "Goodbye, David. Maybe someday we'll forgive each other." I watched her go, a strange weight settling over me. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't just possible, it was necessary. As I closed the door behind her, I knew that this was not just the end of our revenge, but the beginning of a new chapter, one that would require painful but necessary healing.